The points leader, Bobby Rahal, shares row number 1 along with Michael Andretti. Rahal did not finish the last 2 races in Michigan and Denver. He has 1 victory in 1991. Row number 2 sees defending champion AL-UNSER Jr. And remember, Junior won last Sunday in Denver, Colorado. Emerson Fittipaldi blew an engine this morning. He held the provisional pole. His last win, a street course in Detroit, Michigan. Scott Pruett in the True Sport hits row 3. Could get a Chevrolet next year. More on that later. He was 4th in Toronto. LUYENDYK for Granatelli Racing is having sponsorship problems, but it still has not affected his performance. On to row number 4 for Rick Mears for Roger Penske. Mears, as Bobby noted yesterday, a versatile driver, the Indy 500 champion. John Andretti, winner of the season opener in Australia, driving for Jim Hall on row number 4, 5th in Vancouver last year. 1 year ago, Danny Sullivan was runner-up here. He's riding with Alfa Romeo Power for Patrick Racing. Could have a Chevrolet next year. Mario Andretti hasn't quite sorted out the problems, is way down, 10th fastest, row number 5. Eddie Cheever, he was very competitive in Denver, where he ran as high as 2nd before eventually ending 4th. And the 12th fastest qualifier is Scott Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario, 3rd in the rain on Friday, but underpowered yesterday on dry pavement. Row number 7 features Matsushida's Cosworth and Scott Brayton with Chevy Power. Willie T. Ribbs coming off a career best 6th in Denver. Ted Trappis, the 4th and youngest Andretti, is Jeff. Ross Bentley qualified 19th fastest. Down through Tony Bettenhausen, one of the great names in racing, and Jeff Wood. We're on board with Michael Andretti. Starter, we get the green flag. We're racing in British Columbia. Bobby Rahal goes through turn number 1. Ahead of the pole sitter, Michael Andretti. Already a big development as Rahal goes down at 190 miles an hour to turn number 3.
Now, we heard how important Michael said it was to lead that first turn. Bobby Rahal, we also said that he has to be aggressive. Now, this is the aggressive Bobby Rahal that always happens at the end of the year.
And Michael Andretti has gone back ahead of Bobby Rahal. We said he had to be aggressive. That's Andretti, Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi as they come through and up the north side of BC Place Stadium.
Now, I know that Michael didn't think Bobby would beat him at the start, but Bobby Rahal didn't think that Michael would pass him going into that first chicane. That had to be a big surprise, Brent.
Michael Andretti has won 4 races so far this year. Bobby Rahal is the points leader with only 1 victory. Here is one of those new turns we talked about. Down to complete lap number 1 and back through the start-finish area comes your pole sitter, car number 2 for Newman Haas Racing, Michael Andretti. He's followed by Bobby Rahal. We're on board with Andretti through that very fast turn number 1, now up to about 200 miles an hour as they come down Pacific Boulevard South. Rahal, Andretti.
You can watch the cars pitching around a lot there. This is into the hairpin turn down number 3. You can see how close he is board as they get to the wall.
That shot from on board Bobby Rahal's car. Now through the chicane is the race leader, Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal and Emerson Fittipaldi. So Fittipaldi is now running in the number 3 position, followed by AL-UNSER Jr., LUYENDYK, John Andretti, Scott Pruett, Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, and Danny Sullivan. There is John Andretti. John Andretti in the yellow car is running in the number 6 position. Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi, AL-UNSER Jr. in 4th as they now complete the 2nd of 100 laps.
Michael Andretti in a Lola, Bobby Rahal in a Lola. Emerson Fittipaldi in a Penske, and then little Al in a Lola. That kind of gives you an idea how the chassis are doing this early in the race.
LUYENDYK is another good story as we look at the leader, Michael Andretti. There's Rahal. There's AL-UNSER Jr. has got up to 3rd. AL-UNSER Jr. has now moved into 3rd. Emerson Fittipaldi. There's AL-UNSER Jr. He's followed through by Emerson Fittipaldi, who's 4th, and LUYENDYK is now running 5th. There is AL-UNSER Jr. 3rd.
Now let's stay with the changes. Now we've got Lola, 1, 2, 3, right there. Emerson Fittipaldi and a Penske. All Chevrolet powered out in front, just as we expect.
So it's Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal. There's Rahal. There's AL-UNSER Jr. There's your top 3 cars. Very, very close here in the early going in Vancouver.
Now, as they go through the chicanes, watch the guys climbing the curves. This is really hard on suspension. This sometimes makes a difference towards the latter part of the race because it's definitely hard on the suspension unit as they climb the curves. Now, watch for this as they go on through the chicane.
Down through the start-finish area, there is Emerson Fittipaldi, currently running 4th, followed by car number 9, ARIE Lyendike, last year's Indy 500 champion. Emerson Fittipaldi for Roger Penske as they come down Pacific Boulevard South. They'll slow down to about 35 miles an hour here. There's your top three: Andretti, Rahal, AL-UNSER Jr. Now here is a chicane Bobby talked about. It's a left-right combination, and already in some trouble is Matsushita, the Japanese driver. And there is the first of the chicanes. We'll now see the second chicane as Michael Andretti comes out from underneath BC Place Stadium. Here it is, little left-right combination. What's the purpose of those, Bobby?
Well, the chicanes are to slow things down. For the first place, when they go underneath that tunnel, there's Matsushita coming in. He definitely has a problem of some sort. But as they go through this tunnel, it's awfully fast. You can't see very far ahead. The reason they look at this shot here, you can't see very far ahead because of the cement walls. So the idea is for safety is to slow them down with a chicane. And it's a good way to do it, and it's a safe way.
Michael Andretti. Emerson Fittipaldi is car number 5, followed by ARIE Lyendike. Let me run down the top 10. It's Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, AL-UNSER Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi, ARIE Lyendike, John Andretti. As we look back now, this is looking back from Bobby Rahal's car. Amazing shot at AL-UNSER Jr.
Now that's a good shot. You can really see how the driver, look at little Al's form. Look how he runs up on Bobby going into the turn. Shots like this we just didn't have in television not too many years ago. That is awesome.
That is awesome. There's the car 18 that had the camera. You were looking back from that car, if we can do it once again, to AL-UNSER Jr. There we are looking back. Now this is looking back from Rahal. He's running second. You really get a sense of speed that often television is not able to capture. The camera breakup is when the cars go under the overpasses, because again that picture has to be shot up top to the helicopter, then relayed down to the control truck. Across the start-finish line, Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and AL-UNSER Jr., the defending champion. Emerson Fittipaldi is 4th, ARIE Lyendike 5th, John Andretti 6th, Scott Pruett 7th, Mario Andretti 8th, Rick Mears 9th, Danny Sullivan is running 10th, and Scott Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario, who ran so very, very well here in the rain on Friday, is currently running in the number 11 position. Stay with us. Live coverage of the second annual Molson Indy Vancouver will continue on Sports Weekend right after this, as we're off to an outstanding start today. Live to Vancouver, now completing 7 of a scheduled 100 laps. Michael Andretti is the race leader, car number 2. All over him is Bobby Rahal. Running 3rd is defending champion AL-UNSER Jr. You're on board with Bobby Rahal as he pursues the race leader, Michael Andretti. This is the high-speed area of this course, and a great area to pass Bobby Rahal right here under braking.
Yes, it's rough getting into there. As you can see, the car's pitching around at the end of that straightaway here, halfway down it. But it's going to be a place we're going to see a lot of passing. Now we're coming up into right here is where Michael Andretti passed Bobby Rahal just earlier. That'll be the second best place. The guys right now are settling down, but they're turning lap speeds, almost qualifying speeds, Brian. Now this tells me that they're not short shifting yet or cutting the RPM back. They're not cutting back on the fuel yet. They're using a lot of fuel. The idea is Mike, for example, Michael cannot afford to let Bobby Rahal pass right now because he's so hard to pass back. And little Al is the same way. They're all doing the same thing, but they can't run this fast all day.
Michael Andretti has just lapped Tony Bettenhausen down through the start-finish area. Bobby Rahal trying to make a move, and Michael Andretti. We're on board with Rahal as Andretti seems to pull away, if anything, on this fast straightaway from Bobby Rahal.
Well, he starts out in clean air, and when you accelerate off a turn, it looks like this. This is the bad thing right here, is to catch another car. Michael and Bobby are catching the cars that they're lapping. That's going to make a big factor. If you don't get through really quick and really easy, you could get past yourself right there.
Well, they've already lapped Tony Bettenhausen, and they just lapped Nicola Moroza there. So now, through 8 laps, it's Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and AL-UNSER Jr.
Yes, and look at the gap. Just look what traffic does. Michael, Bobby, real close. Little Al is quite a bit behind. That's overlapping one car because little Al has to catch him at the wrong place.
Emerson Fittipaldi is running 4th. ARIE Lyendike is 5th. John Andretti 6th, followed by Scott Pruett, Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, and Scott Goodyear driving for Jim O'Donnell and Mackenzie Financial, running in the number 11 position. Bobby Rahal pursues car number 2, the race leader, Michael Andretti, as Andretti continues to lap the back markers. Andretti, the only driver with 4 wins so far this year. And look at this. The slower cars, that is car 50, Jeff Wood, holding down Bobby Rahal. Rahal now has to get by Wood. There he goes by Wood. Meanwhile, while he was slowed down, as you can see looking ahead, Michael Andretti pulled away.
Yes, and that gives you an idea of the big factor the traffic plays on a race like this. You know, some days it's like going to Las Vegas, the way I say it. You throw the dice and they're good dice. Like in that particular deal, Rahal threw the bad dice. He just lost out on it. But if they turn around pretty soon, and he'll hit it lucky.
Bobby Rahal was a winner at the Meadowlands. There's Michael Andretti. There's Rahal down through the start for the Sherry and now through 10 laps. Michael Andretti has 4 victories so far this season. A winner on that short oval in Milwaukee, a winner south of here in Portland, a winner at the airport in Cleveland, and then, of course, winning for the 2nd time in Toronto in July.
Now, during qualifications, if we remember, we saw all the vapor coming off of the rear wing. Today, it'll give you an idea how cool and how dry it is. Nothing but good, clean air. You can't see a thing on the rear wing.
Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal, Al-UNSER Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi, and ARIE LUYENDYK. Stay with us. Live coverage of the 2nd annual Vancouver Molson Indy will continue on Sports Weekend right after this. Time, Indianapolis 500 champion Bobby Unser, Sally Larbick, and Ken Daniels. I'm Brian Williams. Labor Day weekend as John Andretti goes by Jeff Wood. John Andretti is running in the number 6 position.
And right behind him, trying to get by Jeff Wood, his father, or his uncle's father. There's so many Andrettis that get it mixed up. Uncle Mario, back a little bit, but having a little bit of hard time. Right there, you see Mario, the red number 6.
Mario Andretti is standing 7th as just lapped Jeff Wood. Down through the start finish area comes 51-year-old Mario Andretti. Andretti has had all kinds of trouble here in Vancouver, had trouble last week in Denver. In fact, yesterday, Bobby was forced to qualify in the slower part of the qualifying section, and that is Nicola Marosa, the Italian driver, who appears to be done for the day here in Vancouver.
He's definitely just coasting. We hope he doesn't create a yellow. The cars don't have just everywhere to park here. They have to park someplace, but it looks like he's still under a little bit of power. He's barely creeping in. The thing we don't want him to do is stop in a bad place, because then that creates a yellow. Truck has to get on the racetrack to get it off.
Now through 12 laps, there's Michael Andretti. There is Bobby Rahal, the overall points leader. Remember, 1 year ago, it was a runaway. Al-UNSER Jr. Rahal with 8 finishes in the top 3, but only 1 victory so far this year. That was in the Meadowlands the week prior to Toronto. Through the hairpin, turn number 3, comes Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal now about 8 seconds behind race leader Michael Andretti. Through 13 laps, Al-UNSER Jr. is standing 3rd. Scott Goodyear has now dropped down to the number 12 position. Eddie Cheever moving ahead of Goodyear.
Now there's Bobby Rahal. Let's watch as he gets into the chicane. Now, we didn't see it right there, but I want you to watch and see how many times they run up on that concrete inner part of the chicane. And let's see if the guys are going to try. That's where they get a little bit of extra speed sometimes, Brian, is by cutting across those. And, of course, very hard on the suspension again.
As the race leader, Andretti, comes across the start-finish line. Let's go down to the pits, and here's Sally Larbick. Sally?
You know, Brian, you said that it looks like Michael Andretti is running flat out, but I just talked to the team, and they said that's not the case at all. He's short-shifting just like everybody else. He's concerned about fuel just like everybody else. He said it's all relative. Everybody is short-shifting out there. Everybody is concerning on fuel. Everybody is running lean in order to finish this race, and they have to do that. So the concern is with Michael Andretti that he does finish this race. So it's going to be a toss-up whether to challenge or whether to lay back. Right now, he is laying back, believe it or not.
Well, Sally, I'm going to explain just a little bit to everybody what short shifting is. It means that you just, normally they would like go to 12,500 RPM before they would shift the Chevrolet-powered engine. And what they're doing now is they would pull that back to hypothetically, say, 12,000. If the mileage got extremely bad, they would pull it back to 11,500 before or when they do a shift. Now, with a Chevrolet, Matsushita, no, it isn't.
That is Willie T. Ribbs, I believe. Willie T. Ribbs or Matsushita as the oil comes out the back of the car, and they'll slow down the field now. There's Tony Bettenhausen. Andretti, Rahal. Al-UNSER Jr. is able to get by. UNSER Jr. is by. The top three drivers are by.
Now, Brian, it's one of those situations where, as we could see by the way little Al went and the way the driver's going, they can't see far enough ahead. And they can't do much about that. The course workers, who are the best that there are in the world, are warning them as far down the road as they can. They know there's a problem there. They don't know where Willie T's car is, though.
Willie T. Ribs facing the wrong way at the end of that very fast section. Rick Mears comes through. Rick Mears standing in the number 9 position. He just appeared to lose it off the wall as he was going to his right.
And just bouncing right off of the wall. As you can see, the right rear is broken. The car, ironically, isn't damaged that bad. The rear wing is gone. He's obviously losing some coolest, but that could have been the reason he had problems.
And very quickly, let's go down to the pits. Sally?
Michael Andretti is in the pits for a routine pit stop. He's got the tires on. The fuel is being put in. They said that they would hit on lap 15. He had to be very careful going out of the pits because his father, Mario, was coming in, so they hesitated. And when he hesitated, he almost stalled the engine, and they had to push him out. They're still pushing him down pit road. They can't get it started. They're pushing, they're pushing. Will they get it going? Will they get it going? Mario Andretti, in the meantime, comes out. And it looks from our vantage point that Michael has made it out of the pit as well as Mario. Very close call. Let's go to Brian.
It almost looked like bumper cars with Mario nearly hitting Michael. Rick Mears' car 3 going in beside them. Now, this is Willie T. Ribs' car. Ribs is out of the car and not injured. That's Ribs standing against the fence in the red or dark uniform at the right of your screen beside the 2 course workers. So we're under a full course yellow after 16 laps here in Vancouver, on board with our race leader Michael Andretti, and we'll return live to the 1991 Molson Indy Vancouver right after this. With a brand new sun that arrived this morning, we should be racing as they come back through the start-finish area, and we are indeed. Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal goes into turn number 1. There's Al-UNSER Jr., who is running second. You're on board with Al-UNSER Jr. as Al Jr. is substantially behind the race leader Rahal. He can't even see Rahal as they come down to the end of Pacific South. Through the hairpin, turn number 3, comes Bobby Rahal, the overall points leader with 1 victory this season. Scott Goodyear driving for Jim O'Donnell, and McKenzie has moved up to the number 6 position. There is Al-UNSER Jr. Emerson Fittipaldi is 3rd. Behind Fittipaldi, the red car, ARIE LUYENDYK. Danny Sullivan is 5th. Scott Goodyear is 6th. Michael Andretti is 7th. 8th is John Andretti. Scott Pruett is 9th. Mario Andretti is now running in the number 10 position. Rick Mears, the Indy 500 champion, is 11th as we are back racing in Vancouver.
Now, Bobby Rahal got a good jump on little Al. That's the advantage of being out in front, especially like at this turn right here. Or excuse me, not that turn, but the last turn before you come in. There's little Al coming in for the stop-and-go penalty now.
Now, watch what happens. He must stop. The wheels must stop. Now, there he goes. He was running second when he came in. Again, he was penalized for running over the hose of that car. Car number 9, ARIE LUYENDYK. One of Luyendyk's team hoses was obviously somewhere in the pits area, and the ruling is that the hose was not in the wrong area. It was Al-UNSER Jr. that was in the wrong area. There is car number 5. Emerson Fittipaldi has now moved up to 2nd. ARIE LUYENDYK, car 9, is now 3rd. Danny Sullivan, car 20, is now 4th. And Scott Goodyear is now running 5th as Al-UNSER Jr. has served that stop-and-go penalty. There's Danny Sullivan, car 16, Jim O'Donnell's car, McKenzie Financial. Michael Andretti is now running in the number 7 position.
Now remember, Michael Stahl coming out of the pit. That's the reason he's back so far. He's gaining. He's just going by now. We've had another accident down.
That's turn number 3. On the left, the car they're pulling appears to be Matsushita, the Japanese driver. We'll see it again. That's Jeff Wood, car number 50. That is Andretti, car number 86, Jeff Andretti. And that's the car that spins and goes into the wall. So Jeff Andretti is out of the race. Scott Brayton out of Coldwater, Michigan goes by. There's Emerson Fittipaldi going by. So we'll have another yellow flag. Danny Sullivan. Michael Andretti is now past Scott Goodyear. Scott Goodyear is followed by John Andretti. So Scott Goodyear is now running 5th with Michael Andretti 4th. ARIE LUYENDYK goes through. Here is your race leader, Bobby Rahal, the overall PPG points leader so far this season. There is Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi is running second. Now running third, Michael Andretti. Danny Sullivan fourth, and Scott Goodyear in the number 5 position.
Even though we've had a slight collision down into turn 3, it's only yellow in that turn, Brian. It's not yellow all the way around because they're not really blocking the track. And that's the rules of road racing. Often they only go yellow where the trouble is.
And the trouble's at the end of this straightaway. There comes Emerson Fittipaldi onto the straightaway on Pacific Boulevard South. Now onto the straightaway with Michael Andretti. Down at the end of this straightaway is where Jeff Wood and Jeff Andretti had the collision. Michael Andretti, the race leader, down through the hairpin. They've already removed the 2 cars as we continue racing in Vancouver. Michael Andretti has now moved up to third. It's Bobby Rahal, Emerson Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, and Scott Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario, now running in the number 5 position. Under BC Place Stadium goes Michael Andretti. The pole sitter into the pits comes LUYENDYK. Now this is going to be interesting. LUYENDYK has dropped down to the number 14 position after running third for much of the early part of this race.
Well, that's a bad sign right there for LUYENDYK. They're working on something mechanical in the back of the car. He definitely has a problem. This is going to be a very costly thing for
LUYENDYK driving for Vince Granatelli with a Chevrolet engine. There's Emerson Fittipaldi, followed by AL-UNSER Jr. and Michael Andretti. Now, a very costly problem for LUYENDYK as we look at our race leader, Bobby Rahal. LUYENDYK, last year's Indy 500 champion, has had trouble attracting sponsorship, and this will certainly not help. Bobby Rahal leads Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Danny Sullivan, and Scott Goodyear as we go down to Ken Daniels. Ken?
Brian, they are working on the gearbox of LUYENDYK, and while they have a chance, they're going to put some fuel in. Spoke with Vince Granatelli, team owner, and he's not sure just how bad it is, but this is certainly a long pit stop. The fuel is in, but they're still working on the gearbox on the car of LUYENDYK. Brian?
As they work on LUYENDYK's car, on the left of your screen is the race leader. There he is, Bobby Rahal, as he laps Tony Bettenhausen through turn number 10. Live coverage of the 1991 Molson Indy Vancouver will continue on Sports Weekend right after this. As we come back live, Emerson Fittipaldi is trying to hold off Michael Andretti. Down into turn number 3, car 5 is Fittipaldi. He is second as we look ahead from Andretti, who is third. Fittipaldi about 5 seconds behind the race leader, Bobby Rahal. Through that chicane and up onto the side of the chicane go both Fittipaldi and Andretti. Under the north side of BC Place Stadium, Bobby Unser, it looked like Michael had him on that straightaway, but Emerson came back as under braking. They went into the hairpin.
Michael knows there is no race driver in this world any more stubborn than that Emerson Fittipaldi. He's not gonna, Michael may get by, but it will not be easy, I promise.
On board with Michael Andretti. He's all over Fittipaldi through turn number 10 into the start-finish straightaway. On board with Michael Andretti. BC Place Stadium in the distance. The left-hand turn at 150 miles an hour. Now up to just under 200 on Pacific Boulevard South. Outstanding camera work. Andretti will try to take him under braking, but he's not going to be able to this time.
Now, Emmo, if you'll notice, is hanging a little bit to our left, to his right. That's the block. Partially block a pass to Michael. Not something that's illegal. Make it rough. Remember, Emmo is one hard race driver. Passing, he's got to be the hardest guy I know of to pass.
Emerson Fittipaldi at 44 years of age. The 1989 kart champion, a 2-time Formula One champion in 1972 for Lotus, the youngest ever to win the World Championship, and again in 1974, the 1989 Indy 500 champion again on board with Michael Andretti. Down to complete lap number 30 as Andretti is unable to move into second place ahead of Emerson Fittipaldi.
You watch Michael locking his brakes up. He's driving in so hard on Emmo. This is down the cross-start finish line in this real fast turn in number 1. Down the back straight or front straight away. About 180 miles an hour. See Emmo kind of zigzagging back and forth on the smooth spot. Michael would like to pass him right here, but Emmo's already on the inside. He can't do that.
Bobby, who has to give way? I know there are viewers watching this afternoon wondering if Emmo can move back and forth. Can he cut him off? Just who has the right of way going into those corners?
Well, it's the guy that has has the most power out in front really has the right of way. That doesn't explain it. It's just kind of like the guy that's the furthest ahead going in. Like, for example, if Michael could get more than halfway up Emil's car, Emil's kind of obligated to give him that much racing room. But Emil's tough on that stuff.
Look at Fittipaldi move from side to side. We're looking to Fittipaldi from Michael Andretti's car. Outstanding camera work as Michael tried to go by him through turn number 10, was not able to.
Now remember, we have 3 turns on this track where we most likely are going to have passed it. Not this turn, which is number 1, but the next one coming up, number 3, and then number turn 5, and then number turn 10, and maybe you can point that out as we come around, Brian.
This is coming into turn number 3. Under braking, and Michael Andretti trying to go by, but car 7, Hiro Matsushita, stopped him from doing so. So there was a good passing area. This is another passing area going into the chicane, and then there is one more in turn number 10. From here on to the end of the lap is not really good passing.
Well, as we get down into turn 10 now, which is not too much further down, we've got another chicane coming up. Very hard place to pass right here. Kind of suicidal to do that.
Right.
But now we'll come down into turn 10 where we just saw Michael try to pass Emil a while ago. He'll definitely try it again there now. Watch this.
Now you're coming into turn number 10. And he does it. Michael Andretti goes inside Emerson Fittipaldi. Michael Andretti goes by Emerson Fittipaldi into second place. That is John Jones, car number 12 from Thunder Bay, Ontario, who's already been lapped. Now, Michael Andretti goes by John Jones. John Jones is running in the number 15 position. So Michael Andretti has moved into second place. The race leader is Bobby Rahal. Rahal leading Michael Andretti by more than 7 seconds. It's Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Al-UNSER Jr., and Scott Goodyear is running in the number 6 position. Arie Luyendyk is out of the car and through for the day. We'll be right back. Arie Luyendyk and Vince Granatelli Racing, as last year's Indianapolis 500 champion, is officially through for the day here in Vancouver. That is Michael Andretti, who is some 8 seconds behind the race leader, Bobby Rahal. As Michael Andretti comes through to complete 34 out of 100 laps, let me run down the field for you for those of you just joining us. Bobby Rahal, the leader, followed by Michael Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, Danny Sullivan, Al-UNSER Jr. 5th, Scott Goodyear is 6th, John Andretti is 7th, Scott Pruett is 8th, Mario Andretti 9th, Rick Mears 10th, Eddie Cheever 11th, Scott Creighton is 12th, Ted Frappus is 13th, Ross Bentley from Vancouver is 14th, John Jones out of Thunder Bay running 15th, Jeff Andretti is 16th, 17th is Tony Bettenhausen, and the rest of the field, Arie Luyendyk, Wood, Matsushita, Willie T. Rebs, and Moroza are all out of this race. Now we're going to see that pass. Andretti going by Emerson Fittipaldi into second place.
Now look what he did. He snookered Emo to go over and try to block him on the right, and watch what Michael does. Right by the left side where Emo was sure he couldn't get by. That was one of the nicest jobs of passing I have seen in a long time.
Little con job there by car number 2, the only 4-time winner, Michael Andretti.
Total con job.
Pacific Boulevard South. All right, a total con job as Andretti runs in the number 2 position. Andretti, a pole sitter here last year, was 20th. There's last year's champion, Al-UNSER Jr., as he's making a move on car 20, the Alfa Romeo of Danny Sullivan. Sullivan running 4th into the hairpin turn, and Al-UNSER Jr. cannot get by, so Unser will stay 5th. Here's another good passing area under acceleration out of that tight hairpin before the chicane. Does not get him, so he'll now have to wait to turn number 10. Danny Sullivan is running in the number 4 position. Al-UNSER Jr. is 5th, and all kinds of speculation as to the future of Danny Sullivan, car number 20. Last year, the rumors here in Vancouver were that Sullivan would leave as Danny Sullivan goes by Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi appears to be in some kind of trouble. That is Emerson Fittipaldi. No front wings on car number 5. So Emerson Fittipaldi, who was running 3rd, appears to be done for the day. Danny Sullivan is now 3rd. Al-UNSER Jr. is 4th. And how about this? Scott Goodyear is now running in the number 5 position. No front wing as in comes to the Penske pit, Emerson Fittipaldi.
He lost both of them. Look at the hole underneath. He lost the entire section. Now, most likely, one wing hit something. He'll put a whole new nose on it. He should be able to have a slight repair job. If out. He lost both front wings.
There's Danny Sullivan, followed by Al-UNSER Jr. As we were talking about Sullivan last year, the speculation in Vancouver was that Danny Sullivan would leave Roger Penske. He indeed did. This year, the speculation is he will leave Pat Patrick.
Well, that's really Alfa Romeo. Pat Patrick, we're hoping, is going to figure out some way to get Chevrolet power for next year. Pat Patrick, being one of the oldest guys in kart racing, needs to stay in, and that's about the only thing that he can get sponsors with, Brian.
Quickly, let's go down for the latest on Fittipaldi. As he comes out, here's Ken Daniels.
Brian, that was a very quick pit stop for Emerson. Fittipaldi came in. They made the adjustments to the front wing, and he was back out in no time, Brian.
All right, but he has dropped down, Ken, to the number 12 position. There is Fittipaldi running 12th. Right behind him running third is Danny Sullivan. That's car 20. Danny Sullivan going by Fittipaldi. Al-UNSER Jr., who's running fourth, trying to pass Danny Sullivan. Again, is unable to get past Sullivan. I'm a little surprised, Bobby, with that Chevrolet engine. He ought to be able to blow by that Alfa Romeo.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Danny is handling extremely good. We know that he doesn't have an over-excessive amount of horsepower, or certainly not as much as little Al has the Chevrolet there. But by the same token, he's handling really good, and we know how difficult it is to pass here.
And right behind him is this man, Scott Goodyear. We're looking from Scott Goodyear, who's running fourth ahead to Danny Sullivan, who is in the number 3 position, or to Al-UNSER Jr., I should say. So Scott Goodyear for Jim O'Donnell is driving an outstanding race. Danny Sullivan is third. Al-UNSER Jr. is fourth, and Scott Goodyear is running in the number 5 position. The race leader is Bobby Rahal, by now less than 4 seconds over Michael Andretti. An absolutely outstanding race so far here in Vancouver. Live coverage will continue on Sports Weekend right after this. The pits comes Scott Goodyear for Jim O'Donnell and Mackenzie Racing. Scott was running in the number 5 position, is now running 9th. An outstanding race here this afternoon for Scott Goodyear.
You know, Brian, I just want to mention, last year we were here at this same race, and we made the statement that, or at least I did, that it was the best race Scott Goodyear had ever driven. Well, he is doing even better today. He's 9th, maybe after the pit stop. He was running 5th before that. Now, we know that he's got to be shy about 100 horsepower. So the guy's really doing a good job today.
He will have a Chevrolet engine next year. There is the race leader, car number 18, just coming into the right of your screen. There he goes through right now, through the turn. Right there is Bobby Rahal, leading by now 2 seconds over Michael Andretti. There's Bobby Rahal with a 2-second lead over Andretti, followed by Al-UNSER Jr., Danny Sullivan, John Andretti, Mario Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Rick Mears on board with Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti cannot see ahead now to Bobby Rahal, and I'm not sure, I guess it was just my eyes, but it seemed that Scott Goodyear was slowing down. Here's Scott Goodyear now. Car 15 is back into the pit. Scott Goodyear has come into the pit. He was indeed slowing down. There is your race leader, Bobby Rahal, followed by Michael Andretti, Al-UNSER Jr., Danny Sullivan, John Andretti. Mario Andretti is now 6th, and back into the pits is Goodyear. John Jones is car 12 from Thunder Bay, Ontario. Jones is running in the number 14 position. Into the pits for Alfa Romeo comes Danny Sullivan, who's running 4th. Now the strategy begins. Through 42 out of 100 laps, fuel will be a major problem here today. Some teams were hoping to make it, Bobby Unser, with 2 fuel stops. It now looks like it will definitely be 3. Back on the track comes Danny Sullivan, who now drops down at least 2 or 3 places. Al-UNSER Jr. has now moved up to 3rd. There is Bobby Rahal. Right on his tail is Michael Andretti. The race leader, Rahal, tries to go by Scott Pruett. Now looking back from Bobby Rahal to Michael Andretti. Oh, what a shot! Andretti and Rahal down through the start-finish area and on the Pacific South. That is Scott Pruett. As by Pruett goes Michael Andretti. Pruett is running in the number 10 position.
Well, just look at the difference on the Chevrolet power. He just pulled out Scott Pruett down that long straightaway and zippy-dooed right on by. But I want to bring up this other point just a little bit. We watched Danny Sullivan just fitting. Now, remember, Danny Sullivan is on a 2-pit-stop race. Scott Goodyear, 2-pit-stop race. The fast guys we saw come in early, like Michael, Mario, Rahal, Little Al, I think they're going to be making 3-pit stops. So the strategies are changing, and they'll be changing faster now.
As we look look back from the race leader, Bobby Rahal, to Michael Andretti, let me explain. 2 pit stops and 3 pit stops. Sullivan has an Alfa Romeo. Scott Goodyear, running in car 16, has a Judd engine, so they aren't as powerful as the Chevrolets, so they're able to get better mileage, and so therefore they can make this race with 2 pit stops. But we're looking back from Rahal to Michael Andretti, both with Chevrolets. They have much more power. We'll need 3 pit stops, and Michael Andretti is all over Bobby Rahal.
Now that's at 160, 70 miles an hour when we saw how that's inches away is all.
Inches indeed. There's Rahal going through. There is car number 2, Michael Andretti.
He's putting the pressure on Bobby exceptionally hard because traffic is there. He wants Bobby to pick the wrong lane, the wrong way to go. Then he wants to be able to zap up and at least get alongside of him.
As we look back, I'm sure people wonder, how much do these drivers see in their rearview mirrors? Are they aware of the car jockeying from side to side behind them like Michael Andretti is now?
Absolutely not. All they can do is get an idea where he is and try to think in his head, what does the driver want to do? What is the guy's personality like? What would he attempt to do? What would his desperation be like?
There's Bobby Rahal through, and there is Michael Andretti right on his tail. Now we look back to Michael Andretti from Bobby Rahal's car through to complete the 44th lap. It's Bobby Rahal now by 2 seconds, and on to Pacific South over Michael Andretti. Now looking ahead to Rahal from Andretti's second-place car.
Now remember, we projected Bobby Rahal. The party was over. He has to become aggressive. Now I ask you, Brian, do you ever see anybody more aggressive today than Bobby Rahal?
Maybe Michael Andretti. I'm not sure. This is absolutely mind-boggling, and Michael Andretti has just gone past Bobby Rahal. Michael Andretti moves into second place, or into first place, and Bobby Rahal drops down to second. We have a new race leader, the pole sitter. On the 45th lap, Michael Andretti has now taken the lead over Bobby Rahal. There's Andretti, car number 2. Rahal second. AL-UNSER Jr. is third. John Andretti is 4th. Mario Andretti is 5th. How about that, folks? Of the top 4 cars, 3 are being driven by Andretti's here in Vancouver this afternoon. The leading Andretti, Michael, across the start-finish area, now by about a second and a half over Bobby Rahal, who is racing for Rick Gallis. You're on board with Bobby Rahal, the overall points leader, as he looks ahead to Michael Andretti in a race that has seen some outstanding racing here today. And here is the pass.
There is Michael going on the hard side, the way that Bobby would not think he'd pass on the outside again. Remember now, he did that to Emerson Fittipaldi on the outside. He did it to Bobby Rahal. Bobby did not expect him to go by that side. He expected him to try to pass on the left if he was going to.
And to quote my friend from Albuquerque, New Mexico, I would say that is the second driver that Michael Andretti has, as you would say, snookered here today. Stay with us. We'll return live right after this. Andretti Sunday in British Columbia. John Andretti, car 4. Mario Andretti is uncle, car number 6. They're running 4th and 5th, respectively. Running down the top 5 as they go by John Jones. Car 4 is John Andretti. John Andretti is 4th. Mario, his uncle, is now 5th. Michael is leading the race. So it is a tremendous day here in Vancouver for the Unsers. Michael Andretti, the leader, followed by Bobby Rahal, AL-UNSER Jr., John Andretti, and Mario Andretti. I should say a tremendous day for the Andrettis here in British Columbia. John Andretti and Mario Andretti come to the end of that long straightaway. And just a minute ago, here was Mario trying to go by John. Whoa.
Boy, I'll tell you what. Now, that would have been an embarrassing deal. That's his nephew, and he just about hit him. I mean, that was just inches to spare.
John Andretti's first and only win was the season opener at Surfers Paradise in Australia back in March. He is driving car number 4, and Canadian racing fans very familiar with his team. It's owned by Jim Hall out of Midland, Texas. Race fans in Canada remember going to Mosford, Bobby Unser, and watching the old Chaparral driven by Jim Hall. Now Jeff Andretti is well back. The other Andretti, the story right now, though, is John Andretti and Mario Andretti.
John is the son of Mario's brother. Kid that came up through sprint car racing, something we don't see much anymore. Dirt track racing, things like that. Extremely versatile race driver, and will do nothing but get better for many years to come.
As Mario Andretti pursues John Andretti, they are running 4th 4th and 5th, respectively. The race leader is Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal and Al-UNSER Jr. Live coverage of the 1991 Molson Indy Vancouver will continue on Sports Weekend. Live to Vancouver, car number 2 through 51 laps. Out of 100 is Michael Andretti. Car 18, Bobby Rahal is second. Al-UNSER Jr. third, followed by John and Mario Andretti. On board with Bobby Rahal, who's running second, as he looks ahead to the leader, Michael Andretti. This is a good area to pass. This is where Michael, in fact, made the move a few minutes ago to take the lead ahead of Bobby Rahal.
And passed him on the outside right there. And you can see from the in-car cam, when we were with Bobby Rahal following Michael there, it would be very difficult for Bobby Rahal to go on the outside of Michael.
Mario Andretti into the pits, and we go down to Sally Larvin.
Mario Andretti, he's having a very good day. He's into the pits for tires and fuel. No altercation with his son this time because Michael is out on the track. Mario had a different time to qualify, but he's done very well during this race. He's down off the jacks and back on the track. Mario Andretti.
He has done very well indeed. Mario drops down to the number 8 position as he comes back on the track. Again, fuel strategy is a major story here today in Vancouver. Let me run down the top 10 for you. There's Danny Sullivan just going through in the dark car, who's running 7th. The race leader is Michael Andretti. This is Bobby Rahal. You're on board with Rahal, who's second. Looking ahead to the leader, Michael Andretti, and Tony Bettenhausen. One of the slower cars gets between Rahal and Andretti, but Rahal gets by him. So the top 10, car number 2, the leader, Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal, Al-UNSER Jr., John Andretti. Eddie Cheever is now running 5th. Rick Mears is running 6th. Danny Sullivan, right there, car 20, is now running 7th and is about to be lapped by the race leader, Michael Andretti. So that means only 7 cars on the same lap. Michael Andretti is about to lap Danny Sullivan in the Alfa Romeo. Now, watch the difference in power. Andretti, you're on board with him with a Chevrolet. Danny Sullivan with an Alfa Romeo on to the fastest part of this racetrack, and the best place to pass is at the end of the straightaway under braking.
Well, now he's having problems. Of course, as we said, there he goes by.
Yes.
Got by relatively easy, too, Brian, but Danny really is working good in the tight turns especially. Obviously, he's lacking a little bit of horsepower on the straightaway there.
So Michael Andretti has just lapped Danny Sullivan, who is running 7th. That means only 6 cars on the same lap here in Vancouver, now through 53 laps. It's Michael Andretti, there, car number 2, followed by Bobby Rahal, Al-UNSER Jr., the defending champion, running 3rd. John Andretti 4th, Eddie Cheever 5th, Rick Mears 6th, Danny Sullivan 7th, Mario Andretti 8th, Scott Pruett is 9th, Scott Brayton is 10th, Scott Goodyear, as we look at Goodyear right there, car number 15 coming through the 10th turn. Scott Goodyear is now running in the number 11 position, on board with Bobby Rahal, who is running second to Mario Andretti as they approach BC Place Stadium. And this very fast part of the racetrack, that is Michael Andretti, the race leader in the distance, now by 2.53 seconds. Michael Andretti trying to win his 5th race of the year. He, of course, won in Toronto.
On board with Bobby Rahal, you can watch his right hand and you watch his shift. You can get an idea that flapping that you saw on the camera there was the shoulder harness. Bobby doesn't even realize that it's flapping, doesn't hurt anything, but it's the shoulder harness that holds his shoulders in.
Ross Bentley, the Vancouver driver, now in the number 15 position. John Jones from Thunder Bay is running 17th. Again, Scott Goodyear for Jim O'Donnell running in the number 11 position. There's Scott, car 15, followed by car number 20, Danny Sullivan, who is 7th. Goodyear is actually now again in the number 11 position as we're on board with the second place car of Bobby Rahal. Only 5 cars now on the same lap through 55 out of 100 in Vancouver.
Now, all of these 5 cars we're talking about, Brian, are on a 3 pit stop race, if my calculations are right. Danny Sullivan, for example, who we just saw right there, the black and gold car, is on a 2 pit stop race still so far. Now, remember, things change as you go along. But their team plan today says 2 pit stops. He'll spend less time in the pit. If the other guys stop under the green, it helps Danny gain back an advantage.
An outstanding race. Danny Sullivan is car 20th. He is running in the number 7 position. Bobby Rahal is second and about to lap Danny Sullivan. The race leader is Michael Andretti. Car 15 is Scott Goodyear. Scott Goodyear from Willowdale, Ontario, is now running again in the number 11 position. Goodyear. We look ahead now from Rahal to Danny Sullivan, car 20 in the Alfa Romeo. Rahal has now fallen 11 seconds. He goes by Danny Sullivan. He's 11 seconds behind Michael Andretti.
Now, let's keep another thing in mind, Scott Goodyear, that we didn't tell the people is he came in a little while ago, and I had to notice myself that he had a broken front wheel. So an extra pit stop. That's the reason Scott Goodyear's fallen back a little bit. That kind of means he clipped the wall somewhere, Brian.
Scott Goodyear, car number 15, will have a Chevrolet in 1992. There's Bobby Rahal through, followed by Danny Sullivan and Rick Mears. Rick Mears is running in the number 6 position. It's Michael Andretti leading this man, Bobby Rahal. AL-UNSER Jr., the defending champion. We're on board with Rahal is third. John Andretti is running fourth. Eddie CHEEVER is now running for Chip Ganassi in the number 5 position. Rick Mears for Penske is 6th. Danny Sullivan is 7th. Mario Andretti is 8th. And into the pits comes Bobby Rahal. Bobby Rahal, who is running second, comes into the pits, and we go down very quickly to Kenny Daniels. Ken?
Brian, back in Toronto, fuel was a problem for Bobby Rahal. He said he never really could go racing. Well, here again, what was going to be a 2 pit stop race is now 3, but Bobby Rahal, at least according to his team and manager Barry Green, is going full out as they make a small adjustment now to the left side of the car. Bobby Rahal shakes his head saying, forget it, he's on his way. He's the second of 3 pit stops today. Brian?
As Bobby Rahal comes back into the race, AL-UNSER Jr. has now moved up into second place. So it's Michael Andretti, still the race leader. There's John Andretti in car number 4, who is running fourth. So it's Michael Andretti, AL-UNSER Jr., Bobby Rahal, John Andretti, Rick Mears. Danny Sullivan is now 6th. Mario Andretti is 7th. Rick Mears is car number 3. He is running 5th, followed by Danny Sullivan, and he is about to be lapped by the race leader, this man, Michael Andretti. So should Andretti, car 2, lap car 3, Rick Mears, that means you would have only 4 cars on the same lap here in Vancouver. There's Mears going through. He is standing 5th, followed by Michael Andretti, the race leader.
That car look of Rick Mears looks exactly like Emerson Fittipaldi's car. The difference is Rick is number 3, Emerson Fittipaldi is number 5. Sometimes we have a difficult time telling apart, but you'll know right now, Rick is the one. Right there, number 3. He does not want to get lapped by Michael and get put down the lap. In case they had a yellow, that would really put him a lap behind. Right now, if they had a yellow, Rick could get a 3 lap back all the way back around, Brian.
And you are on board with Michael Andretti. There's Matt Sushita following John Jones through. You're now on board with Michael Andretti as both Andretti and Rick Mears come into the pits. So the race leader's in. Sally?
And the crew led by Chief Mechanic Tom Morris is ready for Michael Andretti. They are saying this is between a 2 and 3 pit stop race. Needless to say, they're trying to get as much fuel into the car as possible. They say that if they can do that, and Michael trusts him that he's going to make this race in 2 pit stops. He's down off the jacks very quickly and out back on the track.
Back onto the track comes Michael Andretti. We have a new race leader. It's the defending champion, AL-UNSER Jr. And UNSER Jr. is in the pits. Ken?
AL-UNSER Jr. is in, Brian, the second of 3 pit stops, according to Rick Allen. Likely will have to make one more. Not the quickest, but he is off.
He is off indeed. No sooner had I said AL-UNSER Jr. had taken the lead with Michael Andretti pitting than AL-UNSER Jr. had to come into the pits. So it is an ever-changing situation here in Vancouver. Stay with us. Live coverage of the 1991 Molson Indy Vancouver will continue, and in spite of the pit stop, AL-UNSER Jr. is still the leader.
Stop, though, to be equal. In other words, some of these guys are going to do 2 pit stops today, some 3. The game planning, we've got to kind of keep up with this, because as we near the end of the race, we're not near the end of the race, but as we get on to this part of the race, strategy starts making a tremendous difference, and pit stops today are going to be the strategy. Now, for example, Michael Andretti, can he do 43 laps on the last pit stop on 40 gallons of fuel? It's going to be close, Brian, and I don't think he can make it.
You're on board with Bobby Rahal, who's running third, looking ahead to the second second-place car. There it is, the yellow car right there of John Andretti, now followed by Bobby Rahal, who's third. AL-UNSER's fourth. Danny Sullivan is fifth. Scott Goodyear is now ninth. And the race leader continues to be Michael Andretti. Into the pits comes John Andretti. So that means Rahal has now moved up to second place. AL-UNSER Jr. is now third. Danny Sullivan is now fourth. Mario Andretti is now fifth. Pruett is now sixth. And Scott Goodyear has gone into the number 8 position. Onto the track comes John Andretti. John Andretti drops down significantly now for Jim Hall. So it's still Michael Andretti leading Bobby Rahal, and AL-UNSER Jr. will return live to Vancouver and the 1991 Molson Indy Vancouver right after this. Is John Andretti and Rick Mears on the hairpin at the end of the straightaway. So John Andretti, who was running 5th, and Rick Mears, who was running 8th. Tangle doesn't look to be too serious. That is Mears backing up, and through goes Scott Brayton. So Rick Mears gets going. John Andretti could be through. Take a look. Mears on the inside.
Well, there's John. He took wide. Rick tried to pass him on the inside. Nothing John could do. He was ahead. He headed for the turn. Rick was in a little too deep. Couldn't stop anymore. They had a slight collision. The bad thing is, John lost his engine. He killed his engine. Now it's costing valuable time, and he was going to be one of the beneficiaries of this 2 pit stop race.
The other beneficiaries of this 2 pit stop race will probably be Scott Goodyear and again Danny Sullivan. They are on non-Chevrolet engines. They don't have as much power, but they get better fuel mileage. This is a Chevrolet engine, and it's your race leader, Michael Andretti, will return live to Vancouver right after this. 2/3 of the 100 laps here in Vancouver. The race leader, car number 2, is Michael Andretti. Michael Andretti, trying for his 5th race of the year, now leads Bobby Rahal by nearly 12 seconds. AL-UNSER Jr. is third. Danny Sullivan is running 4th. And we look at the Penske pits area. It appears that Emerson Fittipaldi is through for the day. Fittipaldi was running in the number 11 position. So again, it's Michael Andretti, followed by Bobby Rahal, AL-UNSER Jr., Danny Sullivan, Mario Andretti, Scott Pruett, Rick Mears 7th. Scott Goodyear is now 8th. Michael Andretti, the race leader, down through the start-finish area. As we look up at Michael Andretti, this is a tough part of the race, Bobby. They need those strong neck muscles. This is the part of the body that really takes the pounding.
There's no question about it. That kid is in good shape. He's been the class act today. He's the most aggressive, handling the best, running the best. He's really been good today. It's his day.
It is his day indeed, but he is driving a Lola with a Chevrolet engine. The Chevrolets with a lot more power than the Judds, the Buicks, and the Cosworths, as well as the lone Alfa Romeo, do not get the gas mileage. So again, Danny Sullivan is running 4th with an Alfa Romeo, and Scott Goodyear, who's running 8th, have a good chance of maybe overtaking some of these powerful Chevy engines as they'll run into fuel problems late in the race. Will probably have to come in for a splash of fuel. Bobby Rahal, who's running 2nd in a Chevrolet engine for Gallus Craco, is the overall points leader coming into Vancouver with 1 victory at the Meadowlands, but he's been in the top 3 8 times so far this season.
Now keep in mind another thing. All of the cars that are up in the front of this race are all Lola chassis. That means that all the fuel tanks, the fuel cells, are virtually identical and the same. So we can kind of see the game plan and the mileage and know that they don't all or anyone have an advantage over the other. Once the Penske cars are out and the True Sports car is out, you're just looking at Lolas.
And you talk about Chevrolet engines. AL-UNSER Jr. just went by. There he is in the number 3 position. Al Jr. with a Chevrolet engine, standing 3rd, 14 seconds behind race leader Michael Andretti. I know a lot of the Chevrolet people are watching today in Detroit as this race is carried live on a Channel 9 in Windsor. The American telecast on ESPN delayed until tomorrow. They'll be watching with interest, and of course the big story is Scott Pruett still in line possibly to get a Chevrolet engine. They're still talking with Chevy.
Well, Herb Bishop, the head guy with Chevrolet, makes these decisions, is listening to this race right now, and we just want to tell Herb we're proud of him for considering giving Scott Pruett, the True Sports team, a Chevrolet engine, because they're a good team, and we want to see him back in racing again.
Sally is standing by with Emerson very quickly as we look at Danny Sullivan. Let's go to Sally.
And Emerson Fittipaldi takes a cool drink of water. There was some question about your engine early on when you changed the engine, but
For this, watch out for Goodyear, now running a very strong 8. Leader Michael Andretti through 72 out of 100 laps here in Vancouver this afternoon. It's Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, AL-UNSER Jr., Danny Sullivan, Mario Andretti, Scott Pruett is 6th, Rick Mears is 7th, Scott Goodyear, who will get a Chevrolet next year, in the number 8 position. And Michael Andretti goes by his younger brother, Jeff Andretti. So Michael Andretti laps Jeff. Jeff is now 3 laps down, running in the number 13 position.
And as Michael goes by Jeff, he waves and says, "Thank you, brother." He made it easy on him, which he should have done. Because when you're laughing a car, the guy should be courteous enough to give you racing room to get by if you're faster.
And down through the start for the Chariot comes car number 2, the Newman Haas Lola Chevrolet of Michael Andretti, perhaps on his way to his 5th win of the year. Michael Andretti with an 11-second lead over Bobby Rahal. John Andretti is now 9th. John Andretti spinning before that hairpin in turn number 1. There is Al-UNSER Jr., who's running 3rd. UNSER Jr. 3rd behind Rahal and Andretti. Al Jr., the defending champion here in Vancouver, as he goes through turn number 3 and up on the Pacific North under BC Place Stadium, comes off a win 1 week ago today in Denver, Colorado.
Just so the people, if they're wondering about speeds right now, for example, the last lap around, little Al turned a 59-second lap, a lower 59, as opposed to Michael turned to the 60.7 or 1 minute .7. That shows you little Al at the moment is running faster than Michael. The problem is he's back about 13 seconds, Brian.
John Andretti, just going through there, is running in the number 9 position, and he's about to be lapped again by Al-UNSER Jr., who is running 3rd. You see the standings as we will continue live in Vancouver with the Molson Indy right after this.
And welcome back. What most thought would be just a 2 pit stop race is definitely 3, and I know Bobby and Brian have mentioned all along about that splash of fuel. Just 2 minutes ago, Rick Gallis, team owner for Al-UNSER Jr., told me they will need that splash. He's just made that decision, and it'll come with just a couple of laps left. Also a late splash for the Rahal team. Brian?
All right, Ken, we're now through 75 laps. It's a 100-lap race. Michael Andretti, the race leader, followed by Bobby Rahal, Al-UNSER Jr., and Danny Sullivan. And we should congratulate Ken Daniels and his wife Lisa. They're honeymooning here in Vancouver. They were married 1 week ago today in Toronto.
She's an awfully pretty girl. I met her this morning. She's very nice.
Michael Andretti is car number 2. Michael Andretti, the race leader, goes by Ross Bentley, the Vancouver driver, who's still running in the number 14 position. Now 4 laps down, 5 laps down in this race. Car number 15 is Scott Goodyear. Goodyear is running 8th, is now nearly 2 laps behind Michael Andretti. On board with Michael Andretti, the race leader under BC Place Stadium. Andretti's lead 8 seconds over Bobby Rahal. He leads by 13 over Al-UNSER Jr. Danny Sullivan is 4th. Mario Andretti 5th.
Michael's picked up the pace just a little bit. A little while ago, he picked up about a second. I think what happened is the crew radios him and tells him, "Hey, little Al is pulling up on you guys. Better pull up just a little bit." Michael has a little bit of reserve power, that's for sure. He's in the Class Act today, the fastest car on the track, right?
No question, less than 25 laps to go as we go down to Sally Lerwick. Sally?
And Brian, Michael Andretti was the question mark regarding this whole pit stop thing. We said that he was between 2 and 3 stops, and they were still deciding. Well, they have decided now that if there isn't a yellow, they may have to come in for that splash at the end of the race. So it is going to be an exciting last few laps. Brian?
That is one of the great understatements. It will indeed. Bobby Rahal is running 2nd, goes through turn number 3. Bobby Unser, you predicted it all day long. We're going to see the leaders come in for a splash of fuel, and possibly Danny Sullivan, who's 4th, and Scott Goodyear, who's 8th, will not have to come in for fuel.
You know, I have to mention this right now, Brian, that very often the pit crews are reluctant to tell TV people what their game plans are. Some of the teams watch television because they realize that we have a full staff of people like Ken and Sally. You and I are figuring these things out of what these guys are going to do. And we often know what they're going to do before they do. So sometimes they're a little bit reluctant to tell the TV the truth.
R20 is Danny Sullivan, who's running in the number 4 position. He is pursued by Mario Andretti, who is 5th. Simply an outstanding race in front of a big crowd. The Molson Indy Vancouver Live and Sports Weekend will continue right after this. return live to Vancouver. Car 20 is Danny Sullivan. Car 6 is Mario Andretti. They are running 4th and 5th, respectively. The leader, through 79 out of 100 laps, is Michael Andretti. Rahal second, AL-UNSER Jr. third, followed by Sullivan, Mario Andretti, Scott Pruett, Rick Mears, Scott Goodyear 8th, John Andretti 9th, Scott Brayton 10th, Eddie Cheever 11th. Ted Trappis has now moved into 12th. Jeff Andretti is 13th. Ross Bentley, the local driver, 14th, and John Jones from Thunder Bay is 15th. Danny Sullivan comes in.
Now, remember, that's his only... Let's go to Kenny in the pit.
Danny Sullivan is in for fuel and a change of tires. Jim McGee is the team manager